Hello and welcome to the Mystic and a Dreamer podcast. I'm Priscilla Di Macedo and Peter H. Folkdale is here with me. And today's episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of meditation, journaling, and reflection, and how this is very important in our own spiritual life.
You know, there was a friend of mine who the other day used an expression that you don't hear often in the spiritual world, and that is self-examination. Maybe because it sounds so academic, but in a certain sense, self-examination is being aware of yourself, trying to be more authentic. And I do think that journaling and meditation are gateways into what is going on inside of us, but also a gateway to self-knowledge. And that's why they are both equally important. Journaling, I think, is a fantastic way to find out what is happening underneath the surface. Journaling is fantastic, especially for people who have a very busy life and don't have a lot of time to themselves. Starting early in the morning by just writing 2 pages without editing yourself is fantastic. It can also be in the afternoon or in the evening. But to start and get into the habit of at least having 5 or 10 minutes, preferably 10, 15, preferably half an hour to yourself is definitely something that will come back and be a very, very, very good thing for anyone. No matter what you believe in, no matter what kind of job you have, no matter who you are.
Yeah, and it's important for these times. I mean, if you guys haven't heard the podcast on the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in 2020, this is definitely affecting all of us in a very big way, you know. And I mean, I'm honest to say, even people around me, including me, have felt the anxiety, the uncertainty, and the stress level to a higher degree. And I believe one way I want to talk to you guys about journaling and meditation and reflection is also because July, this month, and August is going to be a very high intense energy month. What I mean by that is that most people are actually going to start feeling in their physical bodies either ailments, illnesses, or just more restlessness in general than what they're used to. And this anxiety energy is coming in more strongly. And that's why it's important for us, especially now, to use meditation or any grounding exercises that you guys can think of. And that usually means to me going out in nature. And for me, one of the best practices I have as an energy healer and intuitive is nature. Nature, I mean, it is a godsend. It's just, we don't get enough of it. And we need to be out at least 20 to 30 minutes a day, soaking up the rays, the sun, the rain, whatever, you know, breathing in the fresh air and just being with the elementals and listening to water and feeling the soil. That is very therapeutic. And I think there's even scientific research now that has shown that that is what makes people feel better. And to me, that is a meditation in itself. When I go out in nature, I'm not trying to think of anything. I'm not planning anything. I'm not, I'm just trying to be one with what is in front of me in Mother Nature right now. And that's really grounding. So that's, to me, one of the ways that you could use this if you're a beginner meditator or beginning in self-inspection or reflection. Seek out nature, because that definitely balances out what's going on with you and inside of you and your emotional body, and the feelings are there. And, it's also great to journal in nature.
Absolutely, yeah. Know yourself, that those 2 words you found in Greece, in Delphi, as being the most important thing in this world. And knowing yourself has nothing to do with narcissism. It has to do with understanding who you are, because if you do that, you will have less projections, less anger towards other people, towards the world. And once more, by meditating or journaling, you will discover things about yourself you weren't aware of. I would like to say a few more things about journaling. And I've actually started a workshop about it called The Stories That Live in Us. Because we all, like the shamans say, no matter what tradition they're born into, we all are bearers of stories that only we know. And the interesting thing is often we don't even know those stories ourselves until later in life, that we have something we need to share with the world. So journaling has never been just something for writers. Journaling is simply a way of getting inside yourself, finding peace of mind. You could simply call it writing meditation. So what I mentioned in the beginning of this broadcast, it only works if you don't edit yourself. You have to write and keep on writing. And one of those exercises I always do in my workshop is to have people write for 5 or 10 minutes. There's only one rule. Do not stop. If you stop, you're probably a control freak. You're probably afraid of what's coming out of you. And the whole point of journaling is to face everything inside of yourself, whether it's anger, whether it's jealousy, no matter how ugly, and it probably isn't half as ugly as you think, or no matter what is coming out, it needs to come out. Sometimes writing is also about emptying yourself. It's like going to the bathroom. To be really, really poetic about it. So journaling in the morning, preferably, but any time during the day, I think I'm repeating myself now, is a very, very useful thing. I'll talk more about it a little later.
Yeah, we both have different ways of journaling, and that's completely fine. And I understand, because from your standpoint as a writer, and having that creativity outlet come out that way is a great way to do it.
Sure.
I tend to journal as a diary or as a self-reflection of myself. And I'm sure you guys can relate to this. We're all in this rat race when we seem to have a very mechanical life. And unfortunately, a lot of people are having mechanical lives. They're, clocking in and out of work and going and doing the same routines over and over again. And, I love this saying, and you've heard it already, same shit, just different day. So it's like, it's those routines that kind of kill, number one, our creativity. It kills our insights. It kills our intuition. And it also kills our reflection time or self-inspection, which is very important, especially now, because these times are so fast. These times have sped up because we're living in such a technologically advanced society that we think everything needs to be instantaneous, and that we need to check our inboxes every day, or emails or voicemails. Whatever comes at us, we need to reply right away. And unfortunately, that takes all your attention away from you to the external world. And what we need to counterbalance this is reflection. So let's take that inside us and take that upon our own responsibility and accountability of what are we actually doing in our daily life. Because if we don't stop and reflect on what are we doing in our daily lives, guess what? We're going to be, which by the way, I've done this. I've made this mistake before. I've gone 5 years down the road and asked myself, how the heck did I get here? Like, how did I make these 5 years be so tedious and so not what I wanted, not how I had this envision? And I'm not just talking about being goal-oriented. That's very fair, well, and good, but there's no self-reflection on my part whatsoever. I did not have any time. I didn't take the time to ask these important questions of myself. What makes me happy? What does my soul want from, what does my soul want from me? What do I need to do in my daily life to bring me more joy, more balance in my life? Because I was in that rat race for so long that it actually started affecting my health. And I know I'm not the only one listening to this, that this probably has happened to people. And this is because we don't have a balanced life. And this is why it's so important to include meditation, journaling, and self-reflection in your spiritual life. Because you don't want to wake up one day and realize I don't have any more time left. And really look back and be like, did I not do the things I wanted to do? Did I not have these conversations with people I wanted to do? Is this where my life was supposed to go? You have time now, but it's good to have reflection and act on it, Yeah.
I was thinking that in terms of meditation, which we haven't really touched upon yet, is that meditation, obviously, for those who have never meditated, somehow that sounds pretentious. The word meditation often, to some people, is a state that you can't really get into unless you've been practicing for a long time. In a certain sense, Silla talked about meditation as simply going out in nature. The simplest kind of meditation is actually being 100% present. To be mindful, a word that is used all the time, that has become, very fashionable almost. But meditation is actually unbelievably simple. You don't need a mantra. You don't need an expensive course. You don't need to follow a guru. Meditation is being present, because everything takes place right now. You also get your best ideas. Most people get their best ideas when they are in nature, when they are concentrating on something, when they are not trying to be smart, clever, funny, outrageous, but simply are alive with whatever that means. And that usually means being in the now with all senses open. My life changed quite a bit for the better, or I wouldn't mention it here, by simply taking a walk, sometimes a jog, other times a walk, every single morning of my life. And that I try to turn into a meditation. I'm honest enough to say I try, because it's actually very, very difficult for me to be mindful. I am an awful meditator. I've been a bad meditator since I was 30. Within the last 5 years, I've become much better at it. But being mindful has not been something that is natural to me. I'm born without Earth in my horoscope. Of course, I could choose to use that as an excuse for the rest of my life. I will not do that. But it has been a challenge, and it still is a challenge, because I'm almost a sick parody of a writer, that my mind is working overtime, coming up with ideas while I walk into refrigerators, cross streets without knowing what I'm doing. And in a certain sense, I often find it's a miracle I'm still alive now. So emptying yourself, actually even for your brilliant ideas, is actually very important. It's about being alert, by being here now. Some people can use a mantra to get to that. Other people can just intensely watch everything around them. Intensely, whether it's a flower or whether it's just feeling everything in your body, feeling the wind against your chest hairs. If you have chest hairs, not everybody does. All those small little tricks can actually be very, 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 very helpful. Everything that can keep your mind not occupied with ideas.
Yeah, that's really a good point. It's and also silence is important too, I think, to get a little bit of that in between, carving out your me time with a little bit of silence.
But that's why any spiritual tradition teaches to go out in nature, not to go out in traffic in the middle of Manhattan.
So it's easier to meditate. It's easier to start on something that's natural and there than it is to like meditate in a busy street corner somewhere in like
exactly. We in a certain sense we all need more silence in our life, both inner and outer silence.
Well, and but I think that's what the meditation does. At least it has for me. I've noticed a big difference. It's actually brought back the inner stillness or silence of my mental noise down. And that has been quite an improvement of when I first started, because and don't be discouraged, because like any new beginner, especially new meditator, they're going to find out that all they hear is the monkey mind. All they hear is thoughts. All they hear is their own thoughts and their own words, and what you're trying to do is just step back from that, so you can get more space in your mind, and hopefully you have more of that inner stillness, or
more gaps between your
thoughts and silence, and that's where you will find that peace, And of course it takes practice, so I don't think anybody will do it the first time around. So that's why I'm saying don't feel discouraged. Of course, the first time you do meditations, sometimes people have a hard time even sitting still. That's why sometimes walking meditation's better, because you're using your body to be mindful and present as you're walking and seeing what's going on around you without thinking, trying not to get lost in your thoughts. But that takes practice, and but it does. It really does bring that inner stillness back in your life.
When I started to meditate, and when I started on this so-called spiritual journey, it always sounds a little pretentious to me, but when I started becoming aware that I was also a soul and not just a walking Peter, I was actually terrified to find out that I've hardly ever been present in my life, that it was pretty much all thoughts and ideas. My first wife always said something hilarious to me. 25 years later, she said, "Peter, now you finally have a body." And what she meant by that is that I was aware of my body, and I could pray, I could meditate, I could walk at least for a few seconds or half a minute here and there without that stream of words and ideas and past and future. And it actually, at one point, you go, oh my God, have I lived my whole life like that? It's actually a little terrifying sometimes. And most of people on planet Earth will have led their lives like that. I mean, they don't know anything but that ego and that mind and that monkey mind. And so if any of you are beginners here and you feel you are, at the last third of your life or whatever, it's never too late. You're probably still doing better than most people by starting to becoming aware. And that's self-awareness. And of course, that ties in with everything we're talking about. That can happen through journaling, through meditation, as Silla said, by walking in nature. And we need it badly, as Silla said as well, because the energies in the world gets more and more confrontational. You don't even need to go on CNN to know that.
Yeah, that's exactly where I think the majority of the human population have kind of forgot that if there's no self-reflection in why you're doing the things you're doing, why are we always on automatic pilot? That's not good. I mean, it's not good at all. We're not robots, but like Peter said, and I've done this too, like your mind takes over and then you're like, where'd I put the house keys? What, I left this here. Where'd I put, like you can just know when you start losing things that you're just been in your mind this whole time as you're walking around the house. We all have been there, right? Or who hasn't gone upstairs to get something? By the time you get upstairs, you're like, why was I going up here for? Once again, a reminder that you were in your mind the whole time. You didn't even know you're going upstairs to get something, And these are just small things humans do all the time, and we make mistakes, of course. But it's the larger piece of it, How much more consciousness can we bring? And the only way we can bring consciousness is by being reflective of ourselves, our actions, our inner states, our feelings. And the only way through that is by meditation, journaling, and reflection. Yeah. And so I hope that gives you a little bit more of an incentive to keep going with this progress, and don't, you can't do this really wrong, really. As long as you start and you're starting to have introspection of your life, that's all you really need to do. However way that comes to you, if it's through meditation or just writing or just sitting in silence somewhere thinking about your life, that's definitely the way to go about it right now, because we definitely need everybody to be more conscious of why they're doing the things they're doing. Why are they saying the things they're saying? It's all encompassing. It really is. Yeah.
And I think one thing that I might want to add that's very important in this process, and that is, don't judge yourself either. I used to get so angry at myself when I found myself walking around, when I was supposed to meditate, and then 2 hours later I find out that I've been working on a novel inside my mind, or I have just been mad about something that happened in the past, and I've been judging myself for all the awful things I've done and said in my life, and actually none of them are that awful. But, you always have regrets, you always have things that you wanted to do better. And if you don't watch out, your whole life becomes your past, and it becomes the expectations of the future. And then at one point you discover that the only place you're really happy is if you are here right now.
Very good. Very good. Well, and we're definitely in the next podcast coming up, that's, you actually touched on it. We're going to be talking about self-esteem and self-worth as well. And as you pointed out, the importance of also not judging yourself so harshly.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't hate yourself. We don't hate you either. So we'll get back to that. And hopefully this was a decent little introduction to meditation and journaling. Or we just hope we might have said one or two wise words here, and then we'll be happy.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening in, guys, and we'll definitely catch you next time. So, have a great rest of your week.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.